If the aim of a professional sport, as is so often said, is to operate as a successful business, the most successful business in American sports is stock car racing. And no one has dominated that sport more than Richard Petty, the 52-year-old millionaire grandfather they call King Richard. When we began this story, we didn't know a lot about King Richard, and frankly, we'd never been to a stock car race, even though it is the most popular and fastest-growing sport in the country. Stock car racing has come a long way from its rural southern roots when moonshiners raced each other on country roads with souped-up engines. Now it's a $750 million a year business. On almost any weekend, somewhere in America, but mostly in the South, fans turn out to root for their heroes. But 29 of those Sundays are special because that's when the big boys go at it for the Winston Cup, the World Series and Super Bowl of stock car racing.
Turn number 4, Richard Petty's car goes airborne, end over end. There's 2 or 3 other cars into it.
It may seem like a roller derby with engines, but it's big business, Southern style. With over $18 million in total prize money, the rewards are worth the risks. Petty limped away from this accident with a sprained ankle. He hasn't always been so lucky.
When I had my neck broke, I shouldn't have been driving. I've driven with broke ribs. I've driven with broke feet. I went to the doctor and had a special cast made so that I could use the accelerator on the race car. And, you know, just anything, whatever it takes to do the job. If you really want to do it, then you're going to figure out a way.
Oh, King Richard, you run runner's dream, the swiftest of outlaws I've ever seen.
It's an attitude that has won him a special place in Southern folklore. 50,000 of his fans turned out in an open house down in Level Cross, North Carolina, to help him celebrate his 30 years in racing. Petty sat on the porch 2 whole days, signing autographs and shaking hands with fans who waited in line 4 hours to meet him. No one complained.
Just meeting him was terrific. It was worth driving 600 miles. I took my wife to our race when he won the 199th race at Dover. That was our first race together. I said, that's it. It's an omen that Richard won our first race together and we got married about a year later.
Good. That's great. Yes, okay, good. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay. See y'all later.
Some of the things that make Petty such a hero are his 7 national championships and 200 victories, almost twice as many wins as the next guy. It hasn't been easy.
Has to make the move. Petty gets by Baker and Schrader gets by Petty. They're door to door. They're sideways. They touch.
They say it's as safe as getting out of the bathtub. But a driver was killed last season, and the walking wounded are everywhere. A doctor who examined your x-ray said that not only you shouldn't be racing, you shouldn't even be walking.
Well, you know, I've been real fortunate. I've been a quick healer. And at one time there, I ran like 530 or 40 races in a row. And, you know, you're talking 10 or 12 years in a row, not missing a race. And even though I had some accidents and stuff, I was still able the next week to get back in the car and go win some races.
Start your engine!
The most exciting part of the whole race is getting the thing started. After you run 30 or 40 laps, you get so hot in the car that you can't breathe, and you can't even move your hand around on the steering wheel because it'll burn your hand, even with gloves on. It gets probably 130 or 40 degrees inside the car.
Do you still get excited?
Yeah, the reason I still do it is it's a high for Richard Petty, and I really, really enjoy driving a race car. I enjoy it better when I win, but, you know, I still enjoy driving the car.
And the win he enjoyed the most was the magical 200th at Daytona, July 4th, 1984.
I was leading the race, and we was beating and bashing, and he'd be a little ahead, and I'd be a little ahead, and when I got to the line, I knew I was ahead, even though it was that close within maybe a couple of feet.
The car kept on going until it got to the Smithsonian Institution as a prize piece of Americana. Not only because of the 200 wins, but also because of the man.
If you mention 43 and probably 3/4 of the bars in this country, you won't even have to say Richard Petty.
Pete Daniels was born 60 miles from Level Cross. He's one of the Smithsonian's historians of the South.
We collect things for a lot of reasons. This particular car, because it represents a certain social history. And he's certainly left a mark that not only as a driver, but as a folk hero among the people from North Carolina and the people from all over the country.
But that 200th win in 1984 was Richard's last. 154 races since then without a checkered flag. What's been the hardest part about this long stretch of non-winning?
I guess the disappointments of going and doing and trying new things and thinking this was going to be the week and this is going to be the combination we need to win races, and it's just not come to be.
The nice thing, as far as I can see about your situation, is that you are still the king. You would still attract more attention than whoever this year's hotshot is if you went into a crowd. You've been able to maintain a position because there's some kind of difference, some kind of loyalty in the sport, isn't there?
Very much so. I'm in a unique position because I've been doing this 30 years. And the notoriety has just been there so long that the shine doesn't go away just because I don't win.
As a matter of fact, what with sponsorships and endorsements, Richard is making more money now than when he was tearing up the circuit. And it's not just petty. Corporate America has discovered that one of the surest ways to move product off the shelves in the South is to connect it to stock car racing. And it's not just gas, beer, and chewing tobacco anymore. With the cost going up and money the only criterion for sponsorship, stock car racing has gone mainstream. This isn't a ketchup bottle. In fact, ketchup is the only thing connected with it that is supposed to go slowly. Barbara Behrman was in charge of marketing the stuff. What she found was that you didn't have to have Richard Petty to make stock car racing work for you. I was told that you started interviewing women leaving stores. And one of the questions you asked was if Heinz sponsored a car, would you buy Heinz? And 18 out of 20 of them said yes?
That's pretty close.
Is that pretty close?
Yes, it was about 87%.
And that's what got you into this?
That's one thing, yes, definitely.
Are sales up?
Yes, they are. We're very happy to say.
Up enough to justify the money they spend as the major sponsor of a racing car that costs well in excess of $2 million a year to operate and 2 to 3 times that to promote. You can buy a car like Richard's for $80,000 to $100,000. That's a lot of money for a car that calls itself stock. Richard, if you stood back 10 feet and ignored all the signs, that could be a car in a Pontiac showroom. Does that mean it's a stock car race? I could bring my Mark 7 down here Sunday and enter?
Not really. It just looks stock. That's about the only stock thing about the car.
Well, tell me what's different.
All the suspension and stuff is heavier. The brakes are heavier. The shocks and springs are heavier. And, you know, your car's for a 50-mile-an-hour car. This car's fixed to run 200 mile an hour, so a little bit different.
How fast have you ever driven this particular car?
These cars run somewhere in the neighborhood of 215, 220 miles.
Tell me about the inside. The inside of these stock cars wouldn't pass any comfort tests. They're stripped down and crammed with safety features that have evolved through a lot of trial and error. Things like the window nets that weren't there in 1970 when Richard had a little accident down at Darlington.
Everything went in slow motion. I can remember it happened, and everything was really, really slow motion. You remember the car turning over and all this. And as the car would turn this way, my body would go that way, and my arm and everything was out the window.
This wall wasn't here then?
No, this wasn't here. This came about. The net came about, and this wall came about because of that. But anyhow, we wound up out in the middle of the racetrack there and dislocated my shoulder. But that was one of them bad days.
But if you don't want to take a chance on having one of those bad days that cars and drivers sometimes have, there are other ways to take advantage of the exposure big business can get in stock car racing. What you're looking at is the Gatorade 200, the centerpiece of Bill Schmidt's Southeastern marketing program. Bill, every one of those cars down there, somewhere on it has a little Gatorade sticker, right?
Yes, sir.
And you don't get this called the Gatorade 200 because NASCAR loves you.
No.
That costs money.
Absolutely.
Promotion of the event costs money.
Right.
Promotion for things like the hospitality tents, where clients and customers can feel like part of the action and get a chance to sit in show cars. Cars that spend more time at supermarkets and shopping malls than they do at the track. And it works.
It works. If it generates sales, it's a good thing.
And one of the best things in the sport for generating sales is Richard Petty.
When you like someone, we like Richard, when you see his product, you buy it because it's Richard Petty, and you bring that home. Like I tried his barbecue sauce, I love it, but I wouldn't buy it if it didn't have Richard on there. I buy his t-shirts, buttons, I buy everything because I like Richard. He's my favorite, so I just buy it because it's got his picture on it. And everybody does. I think they're just really loyal, and it's hard to explain loyalty, but I think race fans have more loyalty than anything I have ever seen.
Richard's always been a person, and you could really reach out and touch him. He was a touchable person. Some of these guys are not that way. So I think Richard was very special and always will be.
One more shot, Richard.
One more shot. These two didn't get in there. All right, guys, shoot quick.
Who we at?
Tom Cotter manages the stock car program for General Foods.
Being a spokesperson is probably more important than driving. 20 years ago, that was not the case. I'd say now that is paramount. That a person look attractive, be able to conjugate verbs, speak correctly in front of an audience, and be entertaining, and secondly, being a competitive race driver.
Oh, King Richard, just keep up the pace, your foot in the gas tank, and a smile on your face.
Petty still packs them in wherever he goes, like this department store in Chicago. He'll travel thousands of miles and make dozens of appearances in a typical year for his major sponsor, an oil additive he's been associated with for 18 years.
We should have had more police supervision. We're just not ready for the crowd that he's drawing today. Having Richard here was just to get the shoppers into the store, and he's doing a great job for us, especially on a Tuesday night when the place is usually empty.
With any driver, you always remember that the products that they're associated with, and if a driver uses it, obviously it's got to be a rather quality product. So sure, you pay attention to that.
And it's not just consumers who pay attention to what Petty has to say. STP uses him to help motivate their regional sales managers.
Good evening, good morning, whatever.
The man in charge of their marketing is Paul Negro.
What he does for us is try to get the guys excited, try to tell them how they can become winners and beat our competition. We think with his history as a race car driver, he's a perfect fit to do that. He's going through a program now where he's changing some of his mechanics, he's changing some of his aerodynamics and his motor, but not winning is really not the big thing. Richard Petty as a man is the thing that we want to sell.
What can you say about a man called the King?
He's a king just like Elvis. He's a legend. With 200 wins under his belt, there's probably not anybody going to catch him anytime soon.
With a winning tradition of a vanishing